My husband threw me down the second floor stairs after beating me for 3 hours straight. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later with 6 broken ribs and my face so swollen I couldn't open my eyes properly. That's when I found out he had run away with my neighbor, the one who smiled at me every morning. Hi, my loves. My name is Dona Irasima, but everyone calls me Vima. I am 73 years old. I was born and raised in Cachoeiro de Itapemirim, in Espírito Santo, the homeland of Roberto Carlos. But I've lived here in Vitoria for 40 years. I ended up in this big city because of a story that I'm going to tell today for the first time on the internet. A story that I kept deep in my chest, like someone who keeps a thorn that hurts but can't get it out. Before I begin, I want to say that the team at this channel Memorias de Vovo told me that there will be a $200 giveaway to celebrate 50,000 subscribers. I can't believe so many people are interested in this little old lady. To participate is very simple. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, like this video and leave a comment telling us where you are watching this grandma from. Tell us a little about yourself or share a beautiful story. I would love to know who you are, my virtual grandchildren. Now let's get back to the story. I was born in 1951 in a simple little house in the interior of Cachoeiro. My father, Antonio, worked in marble extraction. I came home every day with that white powder in my hair that looked like snow. I thought it was beautiful. But today I know that it slowly killed him. The lung went away with that dust. My mother, Dona Aparecida, washed clothes for others and made the best homemade bread in the city. We were poor, but it never crossed my mind that there was something missing in our lives. Our house was small but cozy. 2 bedrooms, one for my father and mother, another for me and my 2 sisters, a kitchen with a wood-burning stove that was lit all day, a backyard with mango, guava, and acerola trees and a vegetable garden that my mother looked after as if it were a palace garden. The smell of my childhood was of bread coming out of the oven and freshly brewed coffee. The sound was from the battery-powered radio playing Roberto Carlos and my mother humming along. The colors were from her flowery dress swirling as she swept the house, from the waterfall blue sky that seemed cleaner than anywhere else in the world. My mother always said, Irasima, when you meet a man, make sure he looks into your eyes the same way your father looks into mine. And it was true. My father looked at my mother as if she was the most precious thing in the world. Even after a whole day of breaking rocks under the sun, he would come and hug her from behind while she cooked. He would kiss her on the forehead and ask her how her day had been. A man who respects you, respects everything you are. My father would say when he saw me dreaming, awake with the love stories in the magazines. I never accepted anything less, my daughter. I grew up believing that love was like this, simple, respectful, full of small gestures. I thought every man treated a woman the way my father treated my mother. Innocence of a girl raised in a good family. The school was far away, I walked for almost an hour to get there, but I didn't care. I liked to study, I dreamed of being a teacher, I was good with letters, I read everything that appeared in front of me. My father, even though he had little education, encouraged me. Studying is the only thing that no one can take away from you, my daughter. I even did the normal course, which prepared me to be a teacher. I graduated in 1970, at the age of 19, the pride of the family. I was the first to get a diploma. My father cried at the graduation in secret, thinking that no one would see, but I saw it. And those tears were worth more than any speech. I started teaching at a small school near my home, children aged 7 to 10, a mixed class. I loved my job, the purity of the little ones, their joy when they learned to read a new word. I felt useful, important, fulfilled. It was around that time that I met Geraldo. He showed up at the school one day bringing his nephew to enroll. Tall, dark-haired, with well-cut hair, a thin mustache that framed a wide smile. He wore a light blue dress shirt, linen pants, and polished shoes. He wasn't rich, but he dressed with care. "Are you the teacher?" he asked, looking at me in a way that made me blush right away. "Yes, I am, Irasima Pereira. Nice to meet you." "The pleasure is all mine, Geraldo Santos." His hand was big, warm, firm. When he shook mine, he felt a shiver he had never felt before. His nephew joined my class and, coincidence or not, Geraldo always came to pick him up at the end, always dressed up, always smiling, always with a compliment on the tip of his tongue. "Professor Irasima, you look beautiful when you teach. Your eyes shine. Excuse me for being bold, but that dress was made for you. I admire an educated woman." Is there anything more beautiful than intelligence? I, a country girl, raised with firm values, but with no experience in dating. I fell for it like a duck. Every compliment was like water in my garden of romantic dreams. Every smile from him made my heart race like a horse racing. One day he invited me to get ice cream after class. I was nervous, I had never gone out alone with a man, but I accepted. I told my mother, who was worried. "Daughter, be careful. A man who is too handsome, usually knows he is handsome. But Mom, he is respectful. He didn't even try to hold my hand." She still said it with the wisdom of someone who has lived through it. Even more so when you listen to your mother's advice when your heart is pounding. I went to the meeting and it was perfect. Geraldo was funny, intelligent, full of stories. He worked as a salesman at a furniture store in Cachoeiro. He dreamed of having his own business one day. "I want to provide comfort for my future wife," he said, looking at me in a way that made it clear who that wife would be. Our relationship started slowly, always respectful, always within the limits he imposed. Geraldo would come over on Sundays, have lunch with my family, win over my father with talk of football and politics. He won over my mother by helping her wash the dishes afterwards, something no man did at that time. "This guy seems nice," my father commented after a few months. "But take it easy, my daughter. Just because he shows his good side doesn't mean he doesn't have a bad side hidden away." Oh, how I wish I had listened to my father. In the first 6 months, Geraldo was the Prince Charming of the photo novel magazines. He brought me flowers picked along the way and wrote me romantic letters. Respected me as if I were made of crystal. Our kisses were tender, his hands never crossed the line. "I want to do everything right with you, Irasima," he said. "You deserve a man who values you." And I believed. Of course I believed it. Why wouldn't I believe it? I had grown up seeing my father treat my mother like that, with affection, respect, dedication. I thought that was how every man treated the woman he loved. After a year of dating, the marriage proposal came. It was no surprise to anyone. Geraldo had already won over the entire family. He was already a regular presence at Sunday lunches. He already accompanied me to Mass. Everyone in Cachoeiro thought we were the perfect couple. The engagement was simple at my parents' house, a little party with orange cake made by my mother, Garina, and snacks. My father gave an emotional speech about how he had raised a daughter for the world and was now handing over his treasure to another man to care for. "Take care of her like I did, my son," he said, holding Geraldo's shoulder firmly. "She is the most precious thing I have. Don't worry, Mr. Antonio. I will make her the happiest woman in the world." The wedding was scheduled for 6 months later. Those months were a rush. Trousseau to prepare, house to tidy, invitations to distribute. Geraldo had rented a small house near the school where I taught, small but comfortable, with a little backyard where I was already planning to make a vegetable garden like my mother's. The anxiety grew as the wedding approached. My aunts and cousins came with advice about Nucia's night, leaving me red as a pepper. My friends made fun of me, saying that I was going to become a real woman. My mother, more sensible, just hugged me and said, "Daughter, remember that your body is your temple. Even if you're married, you have the right to say no when you don't want to. A man who loves you will understand and respect it." Advice that I kept, but that I would soon discover didn't apply to the man I was marrying. The wedding was in January 1972. I was 20 years old, Geraldo was 27. The ceremony was in the little church of São Pedro, where I had been baptized. I wore the wedding dress that my mother and aunts had sewn by hand, saving on every detail so that I could have this dream come true. When I entered the church on my father's arm, I saw Geraldo waiting for me at the altar. That wide smile, his eyes shining, the rented suit that fit him perfectly. I remember thinking, this is the man of my life. With him I will be happy forever. The honeymoon was in Guarapari, in a simple guest house near the beach. Geraldo had saved months to give me this gift. At that time, spending a week at the beach was a luxury for people like us. It was also the first time we slept together, that we really touched each other. Geraldo was affectionate, patient with my inexperience. At first, at least. After 2 days, he began to show a more demanding, more authoritarian side in bed. "My woman, you have to satisfy me the way I like it," he said one night, forcing me to do things that made me uncomfortable. I held back my tears and obeyed. He was my husband, after all. Wasn't that what wives did? Please their husbands? We returned to Cachoeiro and began our married life. The first few months were spent adapting, learning to cook for two, sharing space, balancing work with household chores. Geraldo continued working in the furniture store, I continued teaching. Our salaries together were enough to live in modest comfort. Little by little, I began to notice small changes in his behavior, nagging at the food I cooked, questions about who I had talked to at work, demands about how I should dress. This skirt is too short for a married woman. Why do you have to wear lipstick to teach the child? Who is this João guy who waits for you outside the school? João was the 70-year-old janitor, but for Geraldo, any man who talked to me was a reason for jealousy. At that time I got pregnant for the first time. I was so happy. I had always dreamed of being a mother. When I told Geraldo, he smiled, hugged me, promised that he would be the best father in the world. For a few weeks, he was back to being the man I had fallen in love with. Affectionate, attentive, romantic. Until I lost the baby in the 3rd month. Heavy bleeding, pain, hospital, immense sadness. When I got home, Geraldo was different, cold, distant, as if it were my fault. You should have taken better care of yourself, he said one night, working, pacing up and down. He lost my son because carelessness. That was the first time I cried hidden in the bathroom with the tap running so he wouldn't hear, but it wouldn't be the last. After the abortion, Geraldo changed completely. The mask fell completely. Prince Charming turned into a frog. And what a poisonous frog, my god. Guys, I can see that this story is getting long, but I really want to share everything with you. I need to take a break to ask. If you're enjoying this story, help me by clicking like and subscribing to the channel. Each new subscription warms the heart of this grandma here. And don't forget to comment where you're watching from. Getting back to the story, the first year of marriage ended with a reality very different from what I had dreamed. Geraldo was no longer the attentive and affectionate man we had been dating. Now he was controlling, jealous, always in a bad mood. He criticized everything. My food, my clothes, my way of speaking, even my way of breathing seemed to irritate him. You breathe too loudly. How do you expect me to sleep with that noise? Little by little, I started to close myself off, talking less, smiling less, doing everything perfectly so as not to give anyone any reason to complain. I was always walking on eggshells in my own home. Even so, I still believed that we could make it work, that it was just a difficult phase, that Geraldo Carrascosa would come back. After all, we had been so happy in the beginning, what had happened with that man? In the 2nd year of marriage, I got pregnant again. This time, I took all the precautions, reduced my workload at school, rested more, followed all the doctor's recommendations. Geraldo seemed more excited about this pregnancy, more protective. Now it's going to work out, he said with that smile that had won me over. I'm going to have my son. But in the 5th month, I lost that baby too. Different complications, same devastating result. The sadness was even greater, because I could already feel the baby moving, I had already started buying clothes. This time, Geraldo didn't wait, nor did we leave the hospital to show his anger. In the car, on the way home, he started. Is there something wrong with you? Normal women don't lose children like that. My mother had 8 without any problems. The doctor said it happens, Geraldo. It's not your fault, nobody's fault. It's your fault, yes, your body is useless. We got home and he continued to be more and more aggressive with his words. For the first time, I threw in his face everything that had been bottled up for months. And do you think that helps with your bad mood, your criticisms, your way of treating me like a maid? That's when I got the first hard slap in the face, throwing me against the wall, the taste of blood in my mouth, the shock greater than the pain. Never talk to me like that again, he said through gritted teeth. I'm your husband. You owe me respect. That night, while he was sleeping, I thought about running away, going back to my parents' house, but I felt ashamed. What would they think? The daughter who couldn't keep the marriage together, who couldn't give birth to grandchildren. At the time, a separated woman was seen in a different light. She was a failure, a woman who couldn't hold on to her husband. And I, raised to be a perfect wife, didn't want that label. So I held back my tears and stayed. The first mistake of many. The 3rd year of marriage was when everything went downhill. Geraldo lost his job at the furniture store, got into a fight with his boss, something about money that disappeared from the cash register. He swore his innocence, but his eyes had that sparkle that I learned to recognize when he was lying. He was unemployed for months, while I supported the household with my salary as a teacher, which barely covered the basics. Drinking, which had always been a social habit, became a daily habit. First a beer at lunch, then two, then kashika straight from the bottle. From an early age, he was even worse when he was drunk. Criticism turned into insults, slaps turned into punches. I started having to explain black eyes and cut lips to my co-workers. I fell down the stairs, hit my face on the closet door, the usual excuses. And people pretended to believe me, because it was more convenient than getting involved. My parents, who lived a few streets away, started to suspect. My mother asked me all the time, but I denied it. My father looked at Geraldo with suspicion, on the rare occasions when we still went to visit them. "Daughter, if something is wrong, you know you can come home," my mother said one day when she caught me crying in the kitchen. "Kitchen. It's okay, Mom. It's just a difficult phase. It'll pass." But it didn't. It only got worse. It was at that time that I noticed the neighbor approaching. Marissa, a recently separated woman, about 5 years older than me, pretty, with dyed blonde hair, always dressed up even to stay at home. She worked as a cashier at the supermarket and lived alone in the house next to ours. At first, she was a sweetheart. She brought me homemade cookies, asked if I needed help, talked to me when she saw me crying in the backyard. She became a friend, a confidant. "He hits you, my dear. That's not normal. You need to get out of there." "I can't, Marissa. I have nowhere to go." "Yes, I do. The world is big. You're young, pretty, intelligent, and you deserve better." Geraldo didn't like the friendship. He said Marissa was a woman of the night, that she was going to ruin me. I defended her. I said she was the only friend I had. What I didn't know is that while I was teaching, Geraldo and Marissa had gotten closer in another way. One day I found a box of matches at home from a bar on the other side of town. I thought it was strange. Geraldo usually drank at home or at the bar on the corner. "I went to see a new place," he said when I asked. "Now are you going to control where I drink too?" I smelled a different perfume on his shirt again. Sweet, strong perfume. "I bumped into a woman on the bus," he explained irritably. "Stop being neurotic." The signs were all there. But I didn't want to see it, or maybe I didn't want to believe that, on top of everything else, he was cheating on me. The new job came 4 months later. I worked as a salesman at a construction materials store, with a lower salary, but at least it was something. I thought things would get better. For a few weeks they did. Geraldo started drinking less, smiling more. He started getting ready for work, taking proper showers, wearing perfume. I thought it was because of the new job. "Are you different, more cheerful?" I commented one day. "Life is getting better. Soon we'll have money again, who knows, maybe even try for another child." Another child. Even after everything I had been through, my heart still raced with excitement. The idea. I still dreamed of a happy family, with a baby in my arms. Nonsense from a woman who never learns. It was May 15, 1975. I will never forget that date, when everything changed forever. It was a rainy Friday. I got home from school early because the ceiling of a classroom was leaking and they had told the students to be dismissed. I opened the door and heard laughter. A woman's laughter coming from our room. The world stopped. My heart stopped. I knew what I was going to find, but I still wasn't prepared. Geraldo and Marissa were in my bed, in the place where I slept. Every night I closed the door without making a sound. They didn't even notice. I went to the kitchen, sat down, and stared into space. I couldn't cry, I couldn't scream. I only felt an immense emptiness. Half an hour later, I heard the back door opening and closing. Marissa sneaking out so as not to be caught. Then Geraldo came out of the room whistling. When he saw me sitting in the kitchen, he stopped in his tracks. "What are you doing home at this hour? They let you out early." "Rain." He looked at me, then at the clock on the wall, then back at me. I saw the exact moment he realized I knew. "Did you see anything?" he asked, his voice already changing. "I saw everything. You and Marissa in our bed." I expected a scream, a slap. Denial. But he laughed. He laughed as if it were a joke. And what are you going to do, hey? Who are you going to tell? I got up from the chair with my wobbly legs. I'm leaving. It's over, Geraldo. That's when he changed. The laughter turned to a growl. The eyes became small and dark. Nothing. You are my woman. Only leave here when I let you. I am not a thing to have an owner. He finished. I tried to get past him, go to the room, get my things. That's when all hell really broke loose. Geraldo blocked my path with his body, big, strong, blocking the way like a wall of flesh and hate. I tried to dodge, he pushed me back. I fell down sitting on the chair. The scare is greater than the pain. You're not going anywhere, he said through gritted teeth. This house is mine. You are mine. The house is rented, Geraldo, and I am not property. He finished. Let me pass. I tried to get up again. That's when he gave me the first slap, hard in the face, throwing me to the side. Shut up, you __. Keep spying on me now. Who gave you that right? Another slap, harder. Then a punch to the stomach that doubled me over without air. I fell to my knees, my vision blurred with pain and tears. He grabbed me by the hair and dragged me across the kitchen. Do you want to know why I was with Marissa? Because she is a real woman. Do you know how to please a man? She's not frigid like you. He threw me against the wall. My head hit. I saw stars. He continued to spiral further and further out of control. Words worse than the blows, destroying the little self-esteem I had left. You can't even give me a son. Dry, useless belly. The blows came non-stop, punches, kicks, slaps. I tried to protect myself, to shrink back, but he was much stronger. At some point I stopped feeling pain. I stopped feeling anything. I just wanted it to end. I don't know how long it lasted. In my memory, it was hours, but maybe it was minutes. All I know is that when he finally stopped, I was lying on the kitchen floor, one eye so swollen it could barely open, blood running from my nose, my mouth, from a cut on my eyebrow. Geraldo looked down at me, panting from the effort of beating me. Then he spat on the floor next to me. If you try to leave again, I'll kill you. Did you understand? I didn't answer. I didn't even have the strength to speak. Did you understand? He yelled at me, kicking me in the ribs. I understood. I managed to mutter. He walked away, grabbed his keys, his wallet. I am going out. When I get back, I want dinner ready and you looking better. Put ice on that face, it's too ugly. And he left. He left me there on the floor, bleeding, without help, without comfort, without anything. I lay there for what seemed like an infinite amount of time. Every breath hurt. Every movement was agony, but something inside me told me I had to get out of there, that if I stayed he would kill me. I dragged myself to the phone in the living room. I thought about calling my parents, but I knew my father would come and kill Geraldo and end up in jail. I thought about the police, but at that time the police didn't get involved in a couple's fight. I called the only person I still trusted, my older sister, Lourdes, who lived a few blocks away. Lourdes, help me, Geraldo, he hit me a lot. I could barely speak between sobs and pain. My God, Irasima, stay there, I'm going. Lourdes arrived in 15 minutes, accompanied by her husband João. When they saw me, they were shocked. Jesus Christ, let's go to the hospital now. João said, picking me up as if I were a child. No, not hospital. He will find me at our house. So, Lourdes takes some of her clothes. Lourdes entered the room and came back pale. John, there's blood on the bed. Lots of blood. And it's not hers, I understood right away. Marissa. Had Geraldo done something to her too, or was it another blood type? At that moment I couldn't even think straight. They took me to their house. João was a bricklayer, Lourdes a seamstress. They had a modest but tidy little house, with 2 small children who opened their eyes wide when they saw me in that state. Aunt Seema fell down the stairs. Lourdes explained quickly, sending the children into the backyard. She cleaned my wounds, put ice on the bruises, gave me painkillers. As he took care of me, he spoke softly. How long has it been like this, Irasima? Why didn't you tell us? I cried. I cried like I had never cried in my life. I told everything. The aggression that began after the first abortion, the daily humiliations, the betrayal with Marissa. And why didn't you come away? Why did you put up with this? Shame. I thought I could fix it, that he would change. Zhao, who was listening to everything from the door, shook his head. He won't change, sister-in-law. A man who hits a woman only gets worse, never better. That night I slept at my sister's house. Heavy sleep from medicine and exhaustion. When I woke up in the morning, every inch of my body hurt. My face was so swollen that I barely recognized myself in the bathroom mirror. My God, what have I done with my life? Lourdes convinced me to file a report. We went to the police station, me limping, leaning on her, wearing sunglasses to hide the most visible bruises. The police officer who served us seemed bored. He wrote everything down with the look of someone who had heard that story 1,000 times. Do you want to file a complaint against your husband? I want. You know you'll need a forensic examination, right? And that he can be arrested. I know. Is that really what you want? It will destroy the man's life. Don't you want to think better? Destroy his life and mine. Who cared about my destroyed life? But I swallowed my anger. I am sure. I want the complaint. I underwent a forensic examination, a list of injuries, multiple bruises on the face and body, a cut on the left eyebrow, requiring 6 stitches, 2 cracked ribs, head trauma, kidney injury. The doctor who examined me whispered as he wrote down, if you go home, he will kill you next time. I didn't come back. I stayed at my sister's house while the police looked for Geraldo. 3 days later, I received the news. He had disappeared, taken clothes, documents, abandoned his job. He ran away like the coward he is. My brother-in-law, he said. Better this way, away from you. But there was still one detail missing from this whole story. Marissa, the neighbor, the lover, the friend. She was gone too. No one had seen her since that day. On the 4th day, I received an unexpected visit at my sister's house, the owner of the store where Geraldo worked. Sorry to bother you, Mrs. Irasima. I know you're going through a difficult time, but Geraldo disappeared without collecting his last payment and Miss Marissa also disappeared. They ran away together, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. It seems so, but before that he came to the store, took an advance that I shouldn't have given and took some construction materials in her car. What materials? Cement, lime, tools? I thought it was strange, so I came to ask if you know anything. I didn't know it, but a chill ran down my spine. Cement, tools, and blood on the bed. Another week has passed. My bruises started to get better. I could walk without so much pain. My parents, who had been traveling to visit my sick aunt, returned and were horrified by my condition and my story. You should have told me sooner, daughter, my father said, his eyes welling up. I would have gotten you out of there with the first slap. I was ashamed, Dad. I thought I would disappoint you. Disappoint us? Never. The only disappointment was this man we chose so poorly. I started rebuilding my life. I took sick leave from school. The principal, very understanding, assured me that my job would be there when I returned. I went to live with my parents again in my single room, which was still intact, waiting for me. I was rebuilding myself day by day, when the bomb fell. It was a June morning, almost a month after Geraldo's escape. The police showed up at my parents' house. Dona Irasima, we found your husband. My heart froze. He had come back. He was coming to get me, to kill me. Where? At Mrs. Marissa Gomez farm, on the outskirts of the city. They were both there. Were they? The policeman exchanged glances with his uncomfortable colleague. You need to come with us. They took me to the farm, a small piece of land that I didn't even know Marissa owned. There. A scene from a horror movie. Police everywhere, tape isolating areas, people digging a hole in the ground. What happened here? Her husband and Mrs. Marissa had a disagreement. Disagreement? What a strange word to describe what I saw next. Marissa's body was in a makeshift grave at the back of the land. She had been brutally attacked, like me, but she wasn't as lucky. She died of her injuries. Geraldo tried to hide the body in a poorly made mixture of lime and cement, the materials he had taken from the store. And him? I asked in shock. He tried to run away when we arrived, he fought back. He was armed. There was an exchange of gunfire. I understood what they weren't saying. Geraldo was dead too. The following days were a blur. Giving statements, hearing details I didn't want to know, understanding what had happened. From what the police found out, Geraldo and Marissa were planning to run away together. He beat me up that day and went to meet her at the farm, where they had arranged to meet. He took the construction materials because he intended to do renovations on the place. They had plans to live there, but there was a fight. A violent one. The neighbors of the farm heard screams, but did not intervene. Rural area, each to his own. When the screams stopped, they saw Geraldo digging a hole in the early hours of the morning. They only reported it because days later they smelled a strong, strange smell coming from the property. I should have been angry with Marissa. She betrayed my trust, slept with my husband, planned to run away with him, but all I could feel was pity. In the end, she met the same guy I met, the monster behind the mask, and paid with her life. The city newspapers celebrated the story. A crime of passion ends in tragedy. My name appeared everywhere. My wedding photo next to the photo of the body being removed from the farm. I became the murderer's widow. I could no longer walk down the street without feeling the stares, the whispers. Mothers took their children out of my classroom, they didn't want the murderer's wife to teach their children. A week later, the principal called me. Irasima, you know I love you very much, but the parents are putting pressure on me. The school can't do it. I lost the job I loved, the profession I had chosen, all because of a man I never deserved to have in my life. I spent months in a deep depression, I didn't leave my room, I barely ate. My worried parents called a doctor, a priest, even a faith healer. Nothing helped. I drowned in guilt. What if I had realized what Geraldo was like earlier? And if I had reported the first attacks, Marissa would be alive today. It wasn't your fault, daughter. My mother repeated every day. It was his fault, his alone. But I couldn't believe it. It was my father who finally brought me back to life. One Sunday in September, he came into my room with 2 bus tickets in his hand. Where are these going? I asked. My voice was hoarse from crying so much. Vitoria, capital of Espírito Santo, a beautiful place near the sea, far from here. And why 2 passages? One for me, one for you. Let's start over, daughter. Nobody knows us there, nobody knows our story. We can be new again. And mom will stay with her sister for now. When we get settled, she will too. And so, with 2 small suitcases and a lot of courage, I left Cachoeiro on October 10, 1975, 24 years old, a widow, scarred by violence, but still alive, still breathing, still able to start over. The trip to Vitoria was long, 12 hours on the road, the bus shaking at every bend. I kept looking out the window the whole time, watching the landscape change, the mountains inland giving way to the first signs of the coast. Do you see that, daughter? My father pointed as we began to cross the bridge that connects the mainland to the island. It's the Bay of Vitoria. Beautiful, isn't it? She was really beautiful. The blue sea, the colorful boats, the outline of the city against the sky, so different from the red earth and mountains of Cachoeiro. There, in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. We arrived with no place to stay, no job, no one we knew, but we had each other and the determination to build something new. His father, practical man that he was, already had a plan. For the first few days, we stayed in a simple guest house in the center. He left early every day and returned at night, tired but optimistic. There's work here, daughter. A lot of work. The city is growing. The port is full of services. A week later, he arrived with the keys to a small rented room in Juquitaquara, a simple, more decent neighborhood. 2 weeks later, I was already working as a construction assistant at the port, and it took me longer to find myself. Fear still paralyzed me. Nightmares still woke me up sweating in the middle of the night. The marks, visible and invisible, still hurt. But the big city has that good thing. No one asks where you came from or what you did. Everyone is too busy with their own lives. Vitoria welcomed me like a mother who welcomes a lost son. The sea, the salty wind, the mountains embracing the city, everything seemed to say, "Welcome, you are home now." For the first few months, I lived like a shadow. He went out less, spoke less. I hid at home while my father worked. The little room in Jukutokura was small but clean. A single room with a small bathroom, 2 single beds, a 2-burner stove, and a small table. Luxury for those who had nothing. Through the window I could see a little piece of sea between the buildings. That little piece became my obsession, my consolation. On sleepless nights, I would look at the lights reflected in the water, counting ships, dreaming of distant places, where no one knew my name or my story. You need to go out, daughter, get some sun, see the water, my father insisted on the weekends. I dragged myself to Cambrai Beach, still wild at that time. We walked on the sand, bare feet, warm water lapping at our ankles. Little by little, the tension in my shoulders began to ease. The permanent knot in my throat was loosening. It was on the beach that I met Leninha, a coconut candy seller who set up her colorful stall every Sunday. A strong black woman with an easy smile and eyes that saw much further than what we showed. You're carrying too much weight, girl. She told me one day, while handing me the hot coconut candy. It wasn't made to carry so much, I don't know why, but those simple words opened the floodgates. I started crying right there in front of her, the stall, the other customers. I cried like a lost child. Leninha wasn't scared, didn't ask any questions, she just came to me, hugged me tightly, and took me behind the tent where there was a wooden bench. Cry everything, cry until you dry up. We'll talk later. I cried for an hour. She stood there running her hand down my back, murmuring comforting words. When I finally stopped, exhausted, she offered me water, a piece of bread, a clean handkerchief. Now it counts. And I told. For the first time since I arrived in Vitoria, I told the whole story to someone who wasn't family. I spoke about Geraldo, the attacks, Marissa, the deaths, the escape to start over. Leninha listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she held my hands between hers, small, white, teacher's hands, between the large, calloused hands of the coconut candy seller. You survived, girl. Do you know what that means? That you are stronger than everything that happened to you. Survivor, I had never thought of myself like that. I always saw myself as a victim, as a failure, as a woman who couldn't hold on to her husband or see the danger signs. Come work with me, Leninha continued. Not on the beach, I have a small snack bar in the Kapizaba market. I need help and you need a reason to leave the house. My father was wary at first, a strange, unknown man, but when he met Leninha and her husband, Sebastião, he changed his mind. I saw in them what I had seen, good, genuine people, without ulterior motives. I started working at the cafeteria in January 1976. I washed dishes, cleaned tables and helped at the cash register. In the beginning it was difficult. The noise of the market scared me. Men made me tense. Every scream made me jump. But Leninha had infinite patience. One day at a time, girl. Today is just today. Tomorrow is another day. The salary wasn't much, but it helped with expenses. Soon my mother was able to join us in Vitoria. We rented a larger apartment in Santo Antonio. 2 rooms now, one for my parents, one for me. Absolute luxury after the cramped little room. With my mother around, I got better faster. She brought from Kishuiro the old recipes she loved so much, the pots of plants she grew on the windowsill, the colorful embroidery that brought life to the white walls. It brought the smell of home, of childhood, of simpler times. This city is good, she said as she watered the plants. There's fresh air, there's a horizon. We breathe better here. I really did breathe, deeper and deeper, with less and less fear. The nightmares became fewer and farther between. I started sleeping through the night, waking up rested. I started smiling again, at first shyly, then more often. At the market, I met all kinds of people. Fishermen with stories of the deep sea, ladies who sold herbs and prayers, children who ran between the stalls, stealing fruit when no one was looking. Beggars who slept in the corners, for whom Leninha always saved a coffee and a loaf of bread at the end of the day. Everyone has a story, girl. Everyone carries pain. Some show it, others hide it, but everyone bleeds inside. Leninha's simple wisdom healed me more than any therapy, which I couldn't afford anyway. She taught me to look beyond my own pain, to see the suffering of others, to understand that I wasn't alone in the struggle. It was also at the market that I rediscovered something I had lost, the pleasure of teaching. I started giving classes. Informal activities for the children of street vendors after work. Children who often skipped school to help their parents at the stalls. I used upturned crates as a desk and wrote with charcoal on pieces of cardboard. I didn't have decent books or notebooks, but I wanted to. And the children were hungry to learn. "Are you a real teacher?" asked little Tiao, the son of a fishmonger, as I explained division using seashells. "I was one day." "And why did you stop?" "Because life sometimes takes away from us what we love most. And can't we get it back?" The innocent question struck me like a lightning bolt. Why not? Why couldn't I take back what was rightfully mine, by vocation? Geraldo's fear no longer existed. He was dead. The shame of history. No one in Vitoria knew my past. That night, I talked to my parents about going back to school, going to college and getting an official diploma. "That's what I want, Dad. To go back to being a real teacher, with a classroom, students, chalk in hand." My father, who never he stopped believing in me and smiled in a way that lit up the entire room. "If that's what you want, daughter, that's what you'll get." It wasn't easy. I worked all day at the market and studied at night. When the Federal University of Espiritu Santo opened up vacancies for the pedagogy course, I signed up. I took the entrance exam at 26, competing with young people who had just finished high school. I came in 20th place, but I passed. It was the beginning of my true reconstruction. College life opened up horizons to me that I didn't even know existed: ideas, debates, books, different people. I learned about Paulo Freire and his pedagogy of liberation, about Montessori and her child-centered method, about theories and practices that transformed lives through education. While I was studying, I continued to give my informal classes at the market, now with more technique and more foundation. The children responded with increasing enthusiasm. Parents began to notice the difference. Children who previously could barely write their names now read short texts, did math, and asked questions about the world.